Welcome to another Scratch tutorial. So today we're going to be making the first part of a pen game. So what we're going to do today is make a character a character rendered by pen that can move around, and we're going to make it be able to shoot. And that's probably all that we'll do in this video. So to start with, delete the cat. This will be a harder tutorial, so if you're a little newer to Scratch, you might not want to do this until you've learned it a little better. So now that we've gotten that over with, convert it to bitmap and fill the whole sprite so that it's just this color. Now, let's say on flag looks, go to looks, and then say hide. So it's gone. And then get a repeat forever function, and then let's make a block, and let's call that block game. Whoops, caps lock is still on, whatever. So then it will repeat forever. It will do the game. So this will happen every frame, and this is what we'll use for our game. So let's go over the basics of the pen block. So to get the pen block, go to here, click on the little button at the bottom that has the little block thing, and then the plus. Then you have all of these different selections. These are all extensions, and you get extra blocks that work with these different things. In this case, you can draw with the sprite. So the first thing we want to do is at the beginning of the game, we want to erase all. So that will be the first thing to happen. So it erases everything that the pen is drawn. So next, I want to make the background just solid black. We can do that with a pen, but we can also just do it with a backdrop. And pen is rendered on top of the backdrop. So now let's make a new block, and then let's say render player. So this will draw the player. So now we'll put blocks in order of how we want it to work later. But so to render the player, let's make two variables. Player X, actually PX for player X. And we're only going to use one sprite in this whole project, and then py. So this project only needs one sprite, although you can add more. So at the beginning, let's just set both of these to 0, so you start in the middle. And then to render the player, let's say go to XY. So this sprite will move to the position of the player when it does this. So move to PX, PY. Then we're going to do a very simple drawing. Set pen color to the default. To change this, you can click on it. You can change the sliders and this. Or you can do the color, saturation, brightness, transparency here. You can just play around with those. I'm just going to keep mine like this, except I'm going to turn the brightness up a little bit like that. Alright. Sorry. Then let's set the pen size to maybe 10. This is how many pixels across it is. Then let's do pen down and pen up. So so when the pen goes down, it will start drawing wherever the player is. And so if the player moves, it draws a straight line from the first position to the second position. So if the player is here and it moves here, it will draw a line from here to here while the pen is down. When the pen goes up, when the player moves, it doesn't draw. So right here, it just draws a dot at the player. So that will be what the player looks like. And so that's pretty much as complex as the player will be. So right now, all it does is it erases everything, then it renders the player, and you see it isn't like stuttering or anything because this all happens instantly. Something we might want to do is click on edit and then run with that screen refresh so that this happens as fast as the computer can do it. You see how if I click on this, it doesn't even highlight it because it's supposed to happen instantly. So now let's make a list, a couple lists actually. Make a list. We're going to have it shoot lasers. So laser X, and laser Y, and also laser direction. I'm just going to call it laser dir. So now we have these three lists, and so now what we want to do is at the beginning we want to delete everything out of all of the lists. So let's just duplicate these blocks. So delete everything out of laser X, Y, and laser direction. So then we won't have any random lasers just flying around the screen when you start the project. So now let's make another block called add lasers, or let's just say add laser. Okay. Now so we can say if let's actually make a separate loop for this. On flag, repeat forever, and then if the mouse is down, then it will add a laser. This is separate because then we can add a delay after this. We could do it another way to make it in the normal loop, but I don't really want to get around to doing that because it will take a lot longer. So, whoops, I did the wrong thing. If mouse is down, you can also use other keys, but I have a certain idea for this. So then another thing we want to do is during the game, we want the sprite to point towards the mouse, or actually when it renders the player, it will point towards the mouse. And the reason we're going to do this is so that we have a reference for direction. So you can't tell because this is just being rendered there without a direction, without the direction influencing it. So now when we add a laser, what we'll do is if we go to our variables, then we want to add something to laser X, Y, and direction. Laser X, laser Y, and laser direction. So let's clear those. For laser X and Y, you want to add PX and PY, which is the player X and Y. And then for the laser direction, just add the direction of the sprite. So it's the direction. So it's this, the player is pointing towards the mouse because that's where this was. And then the player X is added and the player Y is added. So the X and Y position of the player, along with the direction, will make it so that if my mouse is right here, and my player is right here, it will shoot in this from the player in this direction towards my mouse. And then that's all we need to do for adding a laser. Now let's draw the lasers. And then we will want to run this without screen refresh because it will use repeat number functions which take time. So for rendering the laser, we want to go to I'm out of it today. We want it to go to item, we want it to go to item, and then we have to make a variable called I. And so we set I to 0 at the beginning of render lasers. And let's go ahead and call this render and update. So it will move the lasers and draw them. So we'll set I to 0. Then first we're going to have to update the laser so that it looks nice and smooth. So then repeat, and then we want to do length of one of the lists. I'm just going to do laser direction because they should all be the same if we're only adding one thing at a time. Since right now they're all empty, so this block wouldn't do anything. So repeat the length of the laser of all of these will be the same length. So repeat the length of those. It will replace these items of X and Y. So this will make it move in a straight line. So first, let's change I by 1. Then replace item I with item I of X and Y. It will replace it with those, with plus, and then if you saw my random tips for Scratch video, one of the things I added was moving in a straight line. So we have to go down here and get this block and get one, and with the drop-down list, select one of them as sine, which is SIN, and one of them as cosine, which is COS. And then you might want to look this up in the internet. I'm not going to explain it very in great depth why this works, but they're wave functions, and it determines how it determines the relationship between two different parts of a triangle. So what we're doing is we're defining how much the laser has to move on the X and the Y based on the direction. So for the X, we want to do the sine of item I of laser direction plus this, and then for Y we want to do cosine. So it will replace these with those. So then it will go to those positions and then draw the laser. And then before we do this, let's put render and update laser in front of render player so that the player shows up in front of the laser. Now repeat the length of laser direction and put it down here, and then in here say then put go to item I of laser X, and then we want to set I to 0 and change I by 1 at the beginning. You could also do it inside of this first loop, but I found it makes it a little bit slower, so I'm just going to do it like this. And it will go to the X and Y. It will point in the direction of so since we're doing the point in direction, we might have to change our laser style a little bit more. Yeah, I'm going to do this. Okay, so we're going to do this a little bit differently. So point in the direction of item I of laser direction, and then let's just say move 10. Let's make this a little bit smaller. 4. Now if we go to the pen, we can say pen down. Let's set the pen size to 1 and the color to whatever color we want our laser to be. Let's make it red. Pen down, move 4 steps, then pen up. And then it will do this for every single laser. So it will go to every laser and it will draw this. So if each laser will look something like that. So now, something we'll have to do instead of the separate repeat forever functions. Take this out and say broadcast message 1 and then broadcast message 2. So have 2 separate messages that it broadcasts. So now let's duplicate this and take this. So now we'll say when it receives message 2, it will do the game script, and when it receives message 1, then we have to do a little bit. Or actually, we can just do this. And then so we can say add laser. Then let's move this to here. I'll do a delay function at the end. So now at the beginning it will do this. Then it just it knows what the correct direction is. So then you can see the lasers move very slowly. The reason to this is because it's moving 1 pixel at a time. So to make it move more pixels, we grab a multiplication block from here. We multiply this, and let's move it 5 pixels. So if we multiply this by 5, we get a 5 pixel movement every frame. So we get something more like this. That seems like a good laser speed. And in fact, I actually like the fire rate, so let's just keep it. Now let's just add some simple movement. Let's just make this render and move. For render and move the player. So we're kind of running out of time in this video, but because I just used up my my premium screen recorder trial, so I'm going to try and hurry this up a little bit. So let's say then let's just do 4 different keys. Let's just do arrow keys. You can do whatever you want. I know a lot of people prefer WASD and such. So if we get 1 for each of these, then all we have to do is change the variable LX and LY, or PX, not LX. I'm not thinking right. PX and PY. So for PX, on the right arrow key, so PX will be the X position. So you want to have PX be moved positive when the right arrow key is pressed. Let's say by 10. Move it nice and fast. And something you might want to add, later, is different speeds. So instead you can have it be like velocity. Now, if we move this to the bottom of this, And then, so now we have, oh, whoops, sorry, change. I told you I was tired today. Make sure it's change. And I'm going to not edit this part out where I messed that up, because that's something that a lot of people do, including me, all the time. And so I'm going to leave it in so that people are reminded and make sure that they use the right block. So now if we have done this correctly, then we now have a player that can move really fast, shoot, and you see how it's all shooting directly from the player, and this is all with one sprite rendered by the pen. So you might want to adjust the speed. In the next video, we'll be adding enemies. So that's all for this video, though, and I will see you in the next one.